Good morning, family and friends. I just wanted to give you an update about my dad. I want to say thank you so much for all of you who have prayed. Boy, we've really been through it. Dad went into the hospital last Thursday to have a carotid surgery. Basically, he had blockage on the right side of his neck, and the doctors just thought it was a routine surgery to go in there and have that carotid artery cleaned out and then just be released, hopefully the next day. Everything went according to plan. But sometime on that Thursday night, or sometime during that day, Thursday, we don't know if it was during the surgery or what, Dad had a heart attack. And as a result of that, his enzyme levels went way up. And that Friday, he got out of the hospital, and we tried to bring him back into just normal life. And so when he got out that afternoon, we took him to eat. And he was just real lethargic, and we thought maybe it was just the anesthetic that was in his body. And we couldn't get him to respond. And so finally, after we couldn't get him to respond, and he seemed sort of a little bit dizzy, maybe a little bit weak, we took him by my mother-in-law's house, Graham's, who is Kim's mom, who's a nurse. And she took his vital signs and found out that it was very difficult to find a pulse. And so thank God for Graham's and her wisdom. She said, look, Jim, I would just recommend that maybe you just go back to the hospital, go back to the emergency room and let them check you out. And so we took Dad back to the emergency room. When we got in there, several people surrounded him, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 people, and then they began to run some tests. They found out that his potassium level was at a lethal level. Typical potassium is supposed to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2, 2.5. And of course, potassium is an electrolyte that makes the wiring of your heart work right. And too little, and it can be very detrimental to your heart, and too much, it can actually stop the heart. Dad's level was at a 7.1, and that is a fatal or lethal amount of potassium in the body. And of course, it was causing his heart to almost shut down. So anyway, the doctors began to surround him. Before long, we had 10, 12 people in the room. They did an EKG. They discovered that Dad had a heart attack through the EKG and also through some of the blood tests that they did. So they recommended that Dad be readmitted. Dad was readmitted, and they took him up to ICU. In ICU, they began to put him on dialysis because not only was his heart in serious condition, but his kidneys were in serious condition as well. That night, they did dialysis, and that was probably the most crucial night. In fact, that was the night that we had the most people praying. As a result, it was a very difficult night, but Dad made it through, and since then, his kidney functions have been slowly returning. They were talking about him having to go on permanent dialysis, but we prayed and we asked the Lord, we understand that some people do have to go on dialysis, but Lord, we just ask you to restore the function of that kidney. And the Lord heard our prayer in regard to that, and now his kidney is getting stronger and stronger each day. I'm glad to report to you that today, Dad is getting out of the hospital. So it seems like God has just turned it around from, death to life, from a very, very grave situation to one where it's obvious that God is touching him. Thank you, all of you, for your prayers. It has meant so much. I know it meant so much to my mom. It meant so much to me. It meant so much to Kim, to our family. So thank you for standing with us during this time. And we count it a privilege to stand with you when you have a need for you or your family. And we want to say thank you for standing with us during this time. We love you guys.